during that time. Right now, I'm in charge of the tourism promotion in Colombia, Canada. So, yeah, basically, just getting the word out there, getting Colombia to be more known, working with agencies, and making sure that people understand the beauty of Colombia, just like we'll see later on.
Yes. So one of the other reasons that if you look at, by the way, you could go back, I'll provide the link for all the all the past events recording. So if you missed out those ones, feel free to go back and watch those. But one of the things that I guess actually after the COVID will come up is the destinations that's been less traveled, less busy, less tourists are going, and Colombia would be one of those. Last week we traveled to Sicily, and again, I talked about why now is a good time to go to Sicily and why Sicily is a great destination. But today we're going to focus on Colombia. So for those of you who don't know Colombia, why Colombia should be on your bucket list. Again, accessibility and how close it is to North America. Again, especially from Eastern US and Eastern side of Canada, it's very, very convenient to get there. I actually have a slide that I'll show you there, but the access to two coasts and connection to Central America is something that makes Colombia very unique. We're going to talk about the colonial history and heritage a little bit, as well as, how Colombia is the most biodiverse country per square kilometer. Also, the great weather all year round makes it very, very great destination, especially for Canadians that, half of the year we have winter here. The music and the culture of salsa. Santiago will talk about some of the food specialties in Colombia, and again, how friendly and open locals in Colombia are. And the other thing that, for those of us who are very familiar with Costa Rica has been a wellness destination for quite some time. And Colombia, it's an upcoming destination because they're focusing a lot on ecotourism, eco lodges, a lot of unique experiences, which again makes this destination so unique. The other interesting thing about Colombia, a lot of people don't know, Medellin actually won the City of the Year global competition a few years ago because there is so much innovation happening in Colombia. And we don't need to talk about the coffee, but again, we have a guest speaker who will be talking about the culture of coffee. And, I think it's not a surprise for any of us that coffee is something that Colombia is famous for. So a few things before, the things that you need to know before you go to Colombia. So what's the best time to travel to Colombia? As I mentioned, it's an all-year destination, and except I would say 2 rainy seasons. So October and November and May would be sometimes that it's rainy. Apart from that, the rest of the year it's great. Plus, a lot of Canadians visit South America during the winter season. So anytime from November to April would be a great time. Again, I'm basing this presentation on Canadians because my audience are Canadians, and you probably wanted to double check that if you need visa or not. But for Canadians, you don't need visa. There is no longer a visiting fee necessary either. In terms of packing, and we go through some of the details of, the different geographical destinations and particular itineraries within Colombia, but, Bogota and Medellin are in the tropical highlands, and it can get chilly at night, and sometimes it may get really, heavy rains, but typically the weather, it doesn't go less than 12 or 15 degrees during the day, and maybe 8 to 9 at night. And depends on where you're going. And we're going to cover that a little bit more in the presentation, because there are more beach destinations closer to the coast, which is again, humid and hot. And then in Bogota, for example, things are different. So you need to.
Yeah, I would say, if you choose, sorry to interrupt you a little bit there, but Colombia is a very white country and it's very mountainous. We have the Andes, so obviously, depending on where in the Andes you are, you're going to get hotter weather or colder weather. So in Bogota, it's a higher plateau. We're at 2,600 meters above sea level. And that means temperatures are going to be a little colder. So if you're traveling to Cartagena and Bogota, you're going to want to pack both for hot, humid weather and as well as colder, chillier weather. So it's good to it depends on where you visit in Colombia. So packing can be a little tricky, but it's just making sure you have the right research and the right agency and expert that's guiding you through.
Fantastic. So I have another slide that I wanted to talk about the safety of Colombia. And we are, like one of the things that at least stands out for me for Colombia is obviously the drug cartel and all the Pablo Escobar and all of that other stories that we remember for Colombia. But that Colombia of crime and what happened in the past has long gone. And Colombia now came out of that, and it's a great, safe destination for all the people to travel again. And again, I guess one of the things, Santiago, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also I always encourage all of my clients and the people that I work with to go with a high reputable travel company that makes sure that, make sure everything goes well. They have all the areas that you should not be visiting, or it's
Right.
out of that green zone per se, or things like that. And so it's, again, the situation has drastically changed, and the country is ready for tourism for the past few years.
Absolutely, yeah. Just like you said, it's always better to travel to any destination with an expert. Basically, that's just gonna make it worry free. But yeah, we received 4.2 million travelers last year alone. So tourism in Colombia has increased dramatically over the last decade in general. The peace process with the FARC guerrilla was signed in 2016. And so there is no longer a worry of an ongoing conflict, which we had before. And so, the violent days in Colombia are behind us, and we have amazing, amazing places to visit that weren't open to travel before. And what I always recommend is check the travel advisories from your government to all destinations. So check the Canadian travel advisories, where it tells you not to go or where to go in any destination at all, as well as the US travel advisories.
Absolutely. So moving on, for those of you who come to my virtual travel series, you know that I love to also bring the culture and history together, because I don't think that you can even go to Colombia and not know anything about the history, or not really appreciate why you need to go and see this country. So I'm not going to go very, very deep, but these are some of the key points that we all need to remember about that culture and the heritage side of Colombia. So a lot of people relate Christopher Columbus to the name Colombia, but it was actually his traveling companion who holds the distinction as the first European to set foot on this land in around 1499. And so, typically what happened in the past, they were very impressed with the wealth of, local Indians and the resources, the treasures that this country had. And then they went back. Therefore, then Spaniards came, and they quickly make their way into, getting into the country, colonizing it. And initially, Cartagena was, because it's a port country, it was the principal center of trade. That was founded initially, but then later on, the Spaniards, again, defeated the locals by taking advantage of their, they infighting, and in around like later in 1500, they got to what we call it today, Bogota, and what was past called Bogota. So again, this country becomes one of those Spanish colonies. They set up Spanish rules, unusual changes were made, and then they brought slaves from Africa to serve as a workforce. And that's why even like Cartagena was as exclusive slave trading port. And so that goes back to all those years of colony and what happened. And then finally, the independence happened around 1819. And, after that, unfortunately, there was this whole, the drug cartel, the rise of Pablo Escobar's civil war in Colombia. And if you guys are familiar with a little bit of more history, President Juan Manuel Santos he actually got the Nobel Peace Prize for his effort to pardon all those, the military groups that were active in the Civil War, and they finally ended that 50-year-long Civil War. So I think that kind of like covers some, lay of the land in terms of the history and where this country has come along the way. So moving on, again, we would love to, we have videos that we wish we could play, but we don't have time for all of that because we wanted to give you all the information. And then most importantly, at the end of today, we have a mini coffee class that we have, a third generation coffee grower from Colombia joining us to give us that class. So again, we're going brief. We don't have time to go into depth of things, but again, talking a little bit about the current state of where things are. So Colombia is still in the state of emergency till end of August 31st. And hopefully international flights will resume again on September 1st. And it was, I think that's probably the most important thing that you need to know at this point. But again, a lot of countries are either opening up or they're planning to reopen their borders, and they're figuring out how to deal with, the travel after Corona. This slide talks about, so this is Colombia, and this is, again, US and Canada, and it's, as you can see, very convenient to reach to South America, especially to Colombia. And again, this is something that, it has certainly changed, but there are daily, weekly flights regularly from Toronto to Bogota and Medellin, and soon from, I don't think if the flights from Montreal has started, but that was also the plan, to have direct flights from Montreal going down south.
So Air Canada was going to open a route between Montreal and Bogota, but that has been paused, but it is going to be released. Of course, we are unsure of when because of everything that's going on, but we will have additional connectivity with Montreal to Bogota, which is great. So, from Bogota to Toronto, it's less than 6-hour flight. Also, if you're traveling from the East Coast in the US, New York is also about a 5-hour flight. And then from Florida, it's about a 3-hour flight to Colombia. So basically, it's very, very close. I think it's even easier to get to Colombia from Toronto than to get to Vancouver from Toronto. Yes. So yeah, definitely very convenient destination and a short haul.
There are lots of international hotel chains operating, but one of the things that I am passionate about is more unique family-run eco-lodges or more local stays and accommodations. But I just wanted to point out that, all those international hotel chains operate in Colombia. The accommodations, and in fact, travel to Colombia is very affordable. So, $80 average price per night. And again, we're talking about very, very average. You can go as high as, the Four Seasons of the world. But again, very affordable to travel to Colombia. So this slide, It's super important again because of several reasons. It's so when you're traveling to Colombia, you're going to one destination, but there are 5 different regions, and we are going to briefly talk about each of those regions and why you need to travel to that destination. For example, the Indian side or the Caribbean, the Pacific, they all have different cities, different, lakes, rivers, and all of that. And it's so, so important to know. Obviously, you can't visit the entire Colombia in 1 or 2 weeks, but it's interesting to know what are your options to go when you decide to go to Colombia. Again, a mega diverse country. So Colombia, as I mentioned, is the second most biodiverse country in the world after Brazil. The number of birds, butterflies, orchids, it's a heaven if you are into, bird watching and things like that. So moving on into the culture and the richness of the Colombian culture, Santiago, I would love if you share your insider knowledge. You are a true Colombian. So take us there and share your knowledge with us, please.
Absolutely. So biodiversity is not the only type of diversity you're going to find in Colombia. Just like you mentioned, we are extremely biodiverse. So we're the most biodiverse country per square kilometer in the world. That means in a country that's the size of Ontario, roughly the size of Ontario, that is huge. That's a lot of different diversity in such as a small space, basically territory. But it's not the only type of diversity. Just like you mentioned, Layla, we have African origins, indigenous origins, European origins, and also Arab origins from more recent immigrations from the early 20th century. So Colombia is very, very culturally rich and very culturally diverse. And you're going to find some of that diversity especially in its food and in its music. And we talk about Colombia being a country of regions, and because basically, each region, you're going to find a lot of different types of diversity and a lot of different types of music and food. So really, you're going to find quite a different type of offer depending on where in Colombia you go. So Colombia is very diverse and multicultural. There's about 86 estimated indigenous cultures with roughly 68 indigenous languages that are recognized in Colombia. And that's including indigenous and Afro-Colombian communities as well. So as I said, we're really very, very diverse, and we have tons of different origins. And so when you meet Colombians, and the audience can probably, if the audience has ever met a Colombian in their past, we can be very different, right? We can be Black, we can be a little bit more brown, we could be white looking. So we are really a range of a bunch of different colors and origins, and that's really beautiful, and it makes traveling to Colombia quite unique as well. So I'm not sure if we can watch this 40-second clip. It's just to talk about music diversity, and it's basically Shakira at the Super Bowl showing one of the most popular current genres that is 100% Colombian, 100% Colombian Caribbean as well. So it's the champeta rhythm, and if we can watch that very quickly.
I don't think it's playing.
No?
No.
All right, no worries. All right. So basically, Colombia is really a country. We call it the country of 1,000 rhythms, and our current campaign is called Colombia Feel the Rhythm, because basically you're going to find a lot of music diversity and a lot of different cultural expressions that will reflect that diversity as well. So you're going to find festivals and music festivals, but also cultural festivals that will highlight this music. And some of these examples are, the Cartagena International Music Festival, the Vallenato Festival. Vallenato is an intangible cultural heritage declared intangible by UNESCO because of the culture that has grown around the vallenato music, and this is a traditional genre in the Caribbean as well. So we have a bunch of different festivals where you can see all these different types of rhythms. And this is a video that we have and we're using to promote Colombia. Basically, we're not promoting Colombia with the traditional uh, destination video where you see the landscapes of the country and somebody narrates over, but we're promoting the country with music videos. So what we did was a campaign of 13 music videos where we gathered different Colombian artists who joined the campaign, and they actually didn't charge any fees to being part of this campaign because they wanted to help uh, promote the country abroad. So we have amazing artists that helped us make a bunch of music videos to highlight the different regions of Colombia. So it does highlight and showcases the regions, but through music and through a typical genre of that region or that city or that destination. So you should check.
I'll make sure that they get the link in the follow-up email that I'll send.
Exactly. Yeah, you can watch that later on, so you can check some of those music videos because they're really awesome as well. And if I don't know if you know anything about Colombian music, but we have artists as big as Shakira, or we have artists as current as J Balvin or Maluma, or Chucky Town, which it's from the Pacific region, or tons of other artists that are very well known out there, and it's worth exploring as well. So these are some of the we can this is some of the genres you're going to find in different regions. We can move on to the next slide. The fairs and festivals is really, I think it's the jewel of Colombia. If you get a chance to visit Colombia, try to see if your visit or the time you're going matches with the festival, or even, it's worth just going for the festivals, specifically the big ones like the Barranquilla Carnival. The Barranquilla Carnival is the second largest carnival in the world after the Rio Carnival. So the carnival in Rio is the largest in terms of multitudes and people, but the Barranquilla Carnival comes in a second. They're actually done at the same time because both of them start during the Lent. When Lent starts for the Catholics, that's where the Barranquilla Carnival and the Rio Carnival start. This is it's magical. It's something you're not going to experience anywhere else in the world. It's the costumes, it's the people, it's the music, it's the flavors, the smells, everything that you feel when you're in the Barranquilla Carnival. It is Colombia in one single place. And I think it's definitely the best carnival to showcase a little bit of everything that we have in Colombia. But you can also try and enjoy other types of carnivals, like the flower festival that we have in Medellin. This is an amazing expression of the flower culture that kind of developed in Medellin, where farmers used to, display their flowers in parades in the city. And they continue to do this, and they make amazing works of art with the flowers. Colombia is actually the #2 exporter of flowers to the world. So because of the diversity we have, obviously we can grow almost anything. And flowers is one of those things that have grown in Colombia very well, and we have an amazing flower industry. So you can really check that out if you like flowers and you like colors in general. That's an amazing festival. And there's tons of other festivals that you really should check. There's almost one every week in Colombia somewhere. So if you go to Colombia, check festivals in Colombia to see if you can join one of those, because it's really the best way to get a feel of the locals and the culture and the food, and it's really, really enjoyable as well. So Colombia has, a lot of, overall, it has 19 UNESCO heritage sites, both cultural and natural. So here we're going to highlight the cultural ones. So the fortress in Cartagena is one of those that was the first ones to be declared cultural heritage by UNESCO. It's an amazing, it's an outdoor museum, basically. The colonial architecture, the churches, the parks, the feeling of the city is quite amazing. And the history of it. Cartagena, as you mentioned, Leila, was a very important port for the Spanish. It was the second most important port for the Spanish Empire after Cuba. So the importance of Cartagena can still be seen today in its architecture and history. And we have other cultural sites like Mompox, which is very close to Cartagena. So if you go to Cartagena, it's worth checking Mompox. We'll talk about that later as well. We have some archaeological sites like Parque Tierra Adentro, which is an impressive collection of indigenous paintings and sculptures. And we have the San Agustin Park, which is the largest collection of indigenous sculptures in South America. And it's quite amazing. You have graves, you have sculptures, you have really, you get a feeling of this indigenous presence that is so spiritual when you come here, and it's really worth checking out. It's in the south of Colombia. And then you have the coffee cultural landscape, which was the latest cultural site to be declared by UNESCO. And it's basically the entire culture that was formed and created around coffee and coffee growing in the coffee region of Colombia, which we'll talk about.
For sure. So one of the things for those people, those of you that are on my newsletter, actually last week, part of my newsletter was, you know, the UNESCO World Heritage. It's not all about the actual locations. Sometimes it's all about the culture, and the coffee culture of Colombia is something that UNESCO celebrated that, along with some other things that was on the list.
Yeah, and actually this next slide talks about those intangible cultural heritage. So they're actually, it's cultural heritage that's not physical, it's intangible, right? And that means the Carnaval de Barranquilla, which is spectacular, the Black and Whites Carnival in Pasto in the south of Colombia, the marimba music that is traditional to the Pacific region, the San Basilio de Palenque city and the cultural space of San Basilio de Palenque, which is, it was the first declared free city by slaves in all of the Americas. So free slaves from Cartagena escaped from Cartagena, escaped slavery, and they founded the city of San Basilio de Palenque. They actually developed their own language. They have their own language. So it's the only mix of Spanish and African languages can be found in the city. It's the only mix, the only example of Spanish and African languages mixing together, because you're going to find Creole with French in the Caribbean and with English in Jamaica, for example, and other parts of the Caribbean. But the only one that mixed with Spanish was in this part of the world. And so it's really worth, and they have amazing food there as well. We have the Sampacho Festival in Quibdó, or the St. Francis Festival, which is typically called the Sampacho Festival. The Vallenato music, like I told you, was declared intangible by UNESCO as well because of the culture around it. There's an amazing film that I will send you the link to, Leila, so you can share with everyone, that highlights this better than anything I've seen in the past in terms of audiovisual works. And some other more religious events like the Holy Week processions in Popayan, because it's literally just overtakes the entire city, and the tradition that it has, it's quite wonderful. So even if you're not religious, it's very interesting to see this. We have other things like the Wayu normative system and the traditional knowledge of the shamans in Baupés, which is in the Amazon region. So those are also intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO. Really, really just a lot of richness in terms of culture in Colombia.
For sure. So next we are going to take you to some, I don't think I can play any of those. I don't know why, but we'll share all the videos. But again, it's so important that next we're going to dive into the diverse food scene in Colombia. So Santiago will walk us through some of those main specialty of Colombia. And then after that, we're going to go deeper into some of those cities that we are recommending for at least first-time visitors to go and visit. And we'll tell more about, you know, some interesting things to do in that destination.
Exactly. So, yeah, the video before this was actually just a clip from Modern Family in which Gloria makes makes her husband kind of slap a chicken because he kind of mocks what she's cooking, and so to kind of get revenge on him, she tells him that in Colombia it's tradition to slap the chicken while we cook a traditional sancocho meal, and it's just really funny, and it's kind of it gives us a little bit into what food culture is in Colombia, because we really have a huge diversity of food. So if we continue and we check some of these dishes out. Yeah, for example, the bandeja paisa is one of the most popular national dishes, and you can find it anywhere in Colombia, even though the word paisa means of things that are from the region of Antioquia, from the city of Medellin, which is where I'm from actually. So I would be paisa, for example. And people call me paisa, like, oh, he's paisa. I don't know if you have, for example, a name for Torontians, like a nickname for Torontians. But in Colombia, we have nicknames for almost people from every part of the country. And so this is actually a dish that has everything in it. It has eggs, it has chorizo, it has plantain, it has beans, it has rice, it has avocado. And it's really just kind of the highlight of everything that you can find gastronomically in that region. If we go to the next one, we have ajiaco. It's typical from Bogota and its surrounding areas. And it's this amazing soup made with 3 varieties of potatoes and chicken, and you mix avocado and heavy cream on top of it, and it has corn, and it's amazing. It's really one of my favorite dishes in Colombia. Buñuelos, which we eat traditionally in Christmas, which are cheese-filled cheese dough fried balls, basically, and they're really, really tasty. And we have arepas, the traditional arepas. Arepas are a food item shared between Venezuela and Colombia. There's a debate into where it's originally from, but undoubtedly it's from both countries. We have a huge variety of arepas. Every region in Colombia basically has a type of arepa. We have cheese ones, sweet ones, fried ones, plain ones. Just a bunch of them. Filled ones with anything, basically. You can fill them up with anything. We have empanadas and arepas de huevos, or fried foods from the Caribbean. The Caribbean is very famous for its fritters because you're going to find the best fritters in this region. It's really, really good just for any type of, kind of like food hinge you ever have. It's my favorite kind of a sample of Colombian food. If anybody ever gets a chance to try anything Colombia, I always go, you should try the Caribbean fritters like empanadas, carimañolas, arepas de huevo, which are fried arepas with an egg inside, and they're really just delicious. Patacones, which are green plantains and are double fried twice, and you can put anything on top. We like to put avocado or ogao, which is a mix of tomato and onions, and just spectacular. Really, it's good for any time of the day. If we go to the next one, this is traditional beef in Cartagena. It's called posta cartagenera. So it's really, really tasty, soft beef, and you can find it in almost any traditional restaurant in Cartagena. So if you go to Cartagena, you have to try the posta. Don't forget. And we have the fried, this is in French. This was a presentation we did in Montreal. And this is basically coconut rice and mojarra, or fried fish. And it's just spectacular. You can find it anywhere in the Caribbean. The fish there, if you don't eat mojarra frita or fried mojarra when you're in the Caribbean, you basically didn't visit the Colombian Caribbean.
And I guess because Cartagena is by the water, and you get a lot of seafood and great seafood from that.
Yeah, it's fish from salty waters from the sea, yeah. And it's really abundant in that region. This is more from the Pacific and Cali region, which is basically rice with a little bit of everything. Really worth trying as well. I think we can move on. So some of the gastronomic experiences you can find in Colombia are private classes with local chefs. You can find that in the big cities in Medellin, in Bogota, and in Cartagena. You're going to find these type of experiences. So it's really worth doing it. It's not that expensive. I've seen experiences that are $100 for, going to the market with the chef, picking out the ingredients with the chef. The chef basically teaching you how to cook the meal and you cooking with them in their own homes. And so you get an experience that's 360 into Colombian cuisine, and it's really not pricey at all for $100 or sometimes under $100. The visit to the local markets. So basically, those are other experiences, shorter experiences you can visit to get a feel of the locals. This is the traditional basurto market in Cartagena. It's really worth experiencing it, but you should go with a local guide. Don't go alone because it's very, very chaotic. There's tons of locals, but it's amazing because you see a bunch of colors, a bunch of people, and it's great. It's a great way to get the feel of the local culture of Cartagena and not just, because if you go to the walled city, you're going to see a bunch of tourists. So if you want to get locals in Cartagena, you have to go to places like the Basurto market. And well, in Colombia, we have over 400 types of fruits. It's a very abundant and resourceful country. So you have one fruit to try per day of the year, basically. And just there's exotic fruit tasting tours in Bogota and in Cartagena that are really worth checking out for a very, very modest price. And it's just going to give you a feel of the richness of the gastronomy and the food here. And other experiences that we recommend are the coffee tastings. There's coffee tastings. That will be explained a little bit more by my friend Juan Pablo, who will give you the little class on coffee later on. But we also have other tastings. We have a lot of rum in Colombia, because it's also a Caribbean country. It inherited that kind of rum culture as well. And we have amazing, well-priced rum in Colombia. That's just mouth-watering, just talk about it. And you have tastings for rum in Cartagena and other places as well. Basically, in the Caribbean, you're going to find a lot of rum tours, and chocolate tours you can find in Medellin, in the coffee region, because actually chocolate is huge in Colombia. And we discovered it very, very recently, the potential that we have in chocolate. We've made chocolate for a long time, but the potential of chocolate in Colombia has been discovered very recently. And actually research that was done on chocolate found that the origin of the first chocolate that was ever found, like the first cacao plant that was ever found, was found in the deep Amazon in Colombia. So you're going to find a lot of different the types of chocolate, in regions of Colombia, and it's worth buying and taking.
If I'm not mistaken, you have this like special hot chocolate that you put like special cheese, which
people say it's weird, but I grew up doing this. So basically, we love hot chocolate, we love hot cocoa. So my mom gave me hot cocoa when I was growing up, almost every day in the morning, or even sometimes at night. And what we do is we get a slice of cheese, of like campesino cheese, or
which I think it's a Colombian cheese. So we can't do this with other cheeses that we get here.
You can do it with mozzarella or mozzarella types of cheeses because they will melt similarly. And you just get the cheese and you cut it in chunks and you put it in the chocolate and it melts, and then you just eat it with a spoon, basically. It's weird, but it's so delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so just a recap of what we've done so far. So far we have talked about why Colombia should be on your bucket list, some significant historical and cultural aspect of Colombia. And then now, as I mentioned, so let me go back to this slide again. So all of these regions are very, very different, and the history, the culture, the food was slightly different, the weather is different, and we're going to dig into some of those cities in each of those regions, and kind of like show you what the differences are between those cities. And part of the reason, because when you're going to go to Colombia, obviously you can't go to all these cities if your time is restricted, but you need to know what cities you wanted to pick based on your taste. So first, we're going to talk about Cartagena. No, I think actually we're going to talk about Bogota and Medellin. And then later on, as part of other exploring Colombia, we're going to go to Cartagena, Cali, and some other parts of Colombia. But that's briefly a map of, some main destinations or some popular destinations. But if you ask, like what are the top 4 destinations that you wanted to pick for your trip, probably these 4 would be for the first time visitors going to Colombia. And one of the things that we have in our slide, which I am super, super excited, is about the lost city in Colombia? Because a lot of time, you know, a lot of people go to Peru. We are all familiar with Machu Picchu, but stay tuned for that lost city slide, because that's something that I think it's super interesting for Colombia. All right, so let's go to
The Andes.
yes.
Yeah, so the Andes is a very, well, basically, you know, the Andes cross South America entirely. They go all the way from Chile and Argentina, the south of Chile and Argentina, all the way to Colombia, and just a little tip into Venezuela. And in Colombia, the Andes divides itself into three different ranges. So we have a lot of mountains, basically, all over the place. So you're going to find a lot of different locations here. Why don't we move into the Bogota slide? And we talk a little bit about Bogota. Bogota is a huge city. It's a cosmopolitan city. It's a metropolis, basically. It's that says 8 million inhabitants, but some other calculations talk about 10 or even 12 millions. Specifically, you're talking about the surrounding cities in Colombia. So it's a huge, huge city. A lot of movement, a lot of chaos, a lot of traffic. Sometimes a lot of pollution, but also it means that you're going to get amazing urban experiences here. If we move, for example, into Candelaria, the Candelaria area has a lot of history, obviously, because it's the capital of the country. You know, you get the government buildings, you get the cathedral, you get all these really rich history of how the political processes developed in Colombia. And basically, whenever anything political or social happens in Colombia, it is manifested in Bogota. For it, Candelaria, that's a little bit of Candelaria. We know cobblestone, colorful houses, restaurants, cafes, a very urban kind of boutique kind of experience in this part of the city. You're gonna get a lot of cool graffiti in Candelaria. So we have 2 graffiti tours in Bogota. There's a graffiti district, so it's actually a city designated district for graffiti and mural artists and muralists, which is outstanding. It was a collaboration with a lot of artists from all over the world. And that's one, but then the other graffiti experiences you'll get are in Candelaria. This is where it's the center of the city. So basically urban artists overtake it and they want to intervene it and they want to showcase some of that cultural history and cultural conflict and violence and also social, unrest, and they want to manifest it on the walls. And basically Bogota is known for its graffiti all over the world. Just like, for example, Berlin. If you go to Berlin, you have to see graffiti. If you go to Bogota, you have to see graffiti. And not just Bogota, we'll also see that in Medellin.
One comment before we move forward. If you have questions, type it into the chat, but we get back to it at the end of the presentation.
Absolutely, yeah. And the Gold Museum in the Candelaria area as well has to be a must visit when you go to Bogota, because you will understand a lot of the indigenous origins to Bogota, and then the conflicts of when the Spanish came, because they came looking for El Dorado, right? The El Dorado legend was born in Colombia, they in Bogota area, and they kind of located it to a place called Guatavita. Guatavita is a lagoon about an hour and a half from Bogota, where the indigenous people used to make offers to the gods, and they would throw gold into the lagoon. So the Spanish obviously came and they basically went and sacked the lagoon, but we still don't know what can be found underneath this lagoon. It's still largely unexplored. But this museum has the largest collection of gold pieces, of pre-Columbian gold pieces that you'll find anywhere in the world. So it's definitely worth checking the Gold Museum. The Palo Quemado market, as I told you, the markets in Colombia are a must. So just like Basurto in Cartagena, the Palo Quemado market in Bogota if you have 2 to 3 days, it's definitely worth checking out this market in Bogota. You can do personalized tours and try all the different fruits. So basically you can grab any fruit, try it on the spot, and just pay later for it. It's how it works. And tons of diversity. And the market is huge. It's really the biggest market I've ever been to in my life. Villa de Leyva, it's a destination that's 2.5 hours away from Bogota. But if you have a couple couple of days or 1 day to spare, you can even do 1 day tour here, but then you have to leave in the morning, come back after 6. And it's beautiful. It's so this town is so well preserved, and it's really gives you an amazing idea of what colonial life looked like in Colombia. And you're gonna find amazing restaurants here, beautiful cobblestone streets. At night, it's super magical. And the location around it, it's sort of semi-desertic, so you get some amazing landscapes like the one on the next slide, where you find like semi-desertic kind of landscape, but you also find these blue lagoons, and you can do a four-wheeler tours or horseback riding tours here, and also just like you had told me later before, Leila, there's wine tours in Villa de Leyva. So you don't think of Colombia as a winemaking country because it's not. But interestingly, in Villa de Leyva, we find some really, really good vineyards. And actually, the first tropical vineyards in the world are found in Villa de Leyva. And it's because of the height of where this region is and the type of temperature conditions create a really good space for wine and for vineyards. So you can actually get some really, really good wine in Villa de Leyva if you're into wine. Zipaquirá and the cathedral, the Salt Cathedral, is worth checking out. Not even if you're not religious nor Catholic, because it's the only cathedral that is in the world that is located underneath in a cave, basically. So it's really wonderful. It used to be a salt mine, where people will extract salt from. There's still lots of salt production in Colombia. And this is not longer producing. It's no longer active as a salt mine, but the miners used to pray here, and they used to have their own church, and they created this cathedral underneath that has become a must visit when you are in Bogota.
And just to add one point here, so there are opportunities for horseback riding from Bogota to the Salt Cathedral. It takes about like 4 hours, but it's a great experience to just do horseback riding, explore the area, and also get to the salt mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Horse riding all over Colombia is super popular, and you can get some amazing equestrian experiences. And if you can have the time to do that, definitely check it out. And actually, this cathedral, for those who like wellness, has a spa that where they use different minerals from the salt in the mine, and they create this amazing experience around it. And it's worth checking out that experience too. It's really cool. So Medellin is a city it's the second largest city in Colombia. So it's the second most important city in Colombia. The city itself is 2.5 million, but if you get the metropolitan area of Medellin, you're going to get about 3.5 million people. So it's a very large city as well. A lot of connectivity as well. And we call it it's called the Latin American capital of innovation, just like you said, Leila, because of all that is going on in terms of techs and startups in Medellin, and also the social transformation the city had. It used to be the most dangerous city in the world in the 90s. When I was born in Medellin, the city was declared the most dangerous city in the world. And, today it's so far beyond that history that it's just impressive. And that is why they've called it the capital of innovation, because really the city policies and some projects that they have built, public projects they have built to kind of get out of that history and transform the city are amazing. So as early as early 2000s, we're seeing huge transformation in the city, and in 2020, well, it's just a completely different place. This is the center of the city. This is the Botero Park. So Botero, the famous sculpt artist who makes sculptures with bronze and makes and also paintings of like oversized people. And oversized objects. I don't know if you've ever seen Botero in general. He has sculptures all over the world, and there's a huge outdoor museum basically in the center of Medellin. So if you're in Medellin, you have to check that out. It's beautiful. And there's actually a very cool one just to illustrate the transformation of the city. once there was a bomb that exploded in this park that destroyed a bird sculpture by Botero. It completely smashed it. And right now, Botero donated a second sculpture that's identical to that one, and they have them standing next to each other. So they have the old one that was exploded and the new one standing next to each other to reflect on how the city has transformed. And that's just really beautiful. You know, it's kind of eye-tearing when you see that in person. This is the Lights Plaza in the center of the city. Basically, at night, it's very pretty because it lights completely up, and you get a bunch of lights going forwards, which it's really pretty as well. And the transformation of this zone is amazing. All right. So this is the Botanical Gardens, worth checking out if you're in Medellin. And this structure specifically has won several architectural awards. So it functions as a venue for book fairs, jazz concerts, and a bunch of theater functions and a bunch of other things. And so the Botanical Gardens is not just amazing to check out the diversity in plants, but it's also an amazing venue. And it's an orchideorama. It's called orchideorama because it's based on orchids. An orchid is the national flower of Colombia, and actually in Colombia it's where you find the biggest diversity of orchids in the world. So if you like orchids, check out the orchids in Colombia. There's tons of colors, varieties. The cable car experience, to check out some of that transformation as well, and how this type of innovative urban transportation systems have completely changed the lives and the dynamics of people in these very poor neighborhoods. The graffiti tours in the Comuna 13, really, really worth checking out. It pretty much through urban art tells you the story of that neighborhood. It was the most dangerous city and the most dangerous neighborhood and the most dangerous city. So basically, this was the place where the violence was happening in Medellin, right? Because you probably didn't get much violence in the rich areas, but this was the part where most of the violence was happening. So you can see that history through urban art, through the local people and the talent of the local people that live there, because the interventions in art here are not from invited artists from over the world, but from local artists. And the guides here always have to be local. So when you hire through an operator, they always hire local guides from the neighborhood to tell you the story, which is really cool too. So some of that examples, you can do photograph tours. All right, and this is just another example.
So one of the things I wanted to highlight here was the famous Pablo Escobar's home was something that you could visit up until 2019, the February. There was so much politics back and forth, but finally they decided to demolish this with, you know, all this painful legacy and everything, because they hated it that, you know, Pablo Escobar's home had become one of the most visited places in Medellin. And so
yeah. We don't really promote Pablo Escobar tours, like the ones that are sort of kind of trying to show Pablo Escobar as an idol. The ones that idolize him, we don't promote him, and we're trying to ban them in the city. But we do want people to know that there was conflict. We do want people to know that Pablo Escobar was a thing, and it was huge, and he was the richest man in the Americas for some time because of the empire he built on drugs. But he was a very violent person and a national terrorist, basically a domestic terrorist. And so it is very painful for Colombians. So when people don't understand that and they try to idolize him, well, for us, it is offensive because that's not the approach that you're supposed to give this type of history, right? And so, yeah, the city demolished this building that was abandoned. That was one of the sites of the tour, of some of these tours. So near Medellin, about 2 hours away, you can find really charming towns like Guatapé, which is a beautiful, colorful town next to a reservoir. If we go to the next slide, you see that it's a reservoir. And if you go to the next slide, you see that you can actually do sailing, you can do water sports, you can do skiing, you can stay in a lake house as well, which is beautiful. So really worth checking out Guatapé if you're in Medellin. Also in the nearby Medellin area, you find cycling tours that are amazing. So Colombia is huge on cycling. You know, after football, it's the national sport of Colombia is cycling because we have so many mountains and so many roads that are amazing for training cyclists. So we have won the Tour de France twice. We have won the Giro d'Italia and a bunch of other cycling competitions because Colombians are huge in cycling.
Excellent. So far we've explored the Indian region, and now we are going to go to the Caribbean, where the coastal cities are, and take us there, Santiago.
All right, so we can even go ahead and skip to Cartagena. Cartagena, as I told you, well, it's an amazing outdoor museum, basically. The colonial architecture, the history, the museums there, everything is so well. It is probably the most touristic city in Colombia, and it's a tourism jewel of Colombia. And, you know, even before we became this huge trendy destination, Cartagena has always been a trendy destination, basically. You know, from early 2000s, basically, people have been visiting Cartagena. But it is more recently that people are exploring all the other parts of Colombia. If we move on to the next slide.
What stands out for me for Cartagena is, apart from, yes, the city is so beautiful, lots of, colonial and war history and gastronomy experiences, high-end eating. The other side that sort of like stands out for me is this, basically the city was built on gold and slavery. So I think that's sort of like the view I have all the time thinking about Cartagena.
The slave trade and the gold trade were huge back then. So you find some of these, balconies and architecture, and and you learn about the history, a very cruel history of slavery, and what's happening right now. In Colombia, is actually, with everything that's going on in the world right now in terms of Black Lives Matter, for example, Colombia has a huge Afro-Colombian population, and it's very important to understand this how important the Afro culture is to Colombia. And Cartagena is a great starting point for that. This is the fort of San Felipe. Basically, you're going to find the biggest Colombian flag in Colombia in this fort. So if you want to take an amazing picture with the Colombian flag on the top, you can go here. And the best sunsets in Cartagena, or some of the best sunsets in Cartagena, can be seen from there. Also, some luxury experiences you can find here. For example, the super yachts and the mega yachts, charter experiences. You can find a lot of different experiences regarding yachts and also boats in Cartagena. So worth checking out if you're into that. Rosario Island. So Cartagena per se is not a sun and beach destination. It's right next to the ocean, but the beaches in Cartagena are not the nicest, and also they're really busy and they're filled with people that are trying to sell you things. So we never recommend going to the beaches by Cartagena, but instead going to the beaches that are near Cartagena. So if you go on a boat and you take a 40-minute boat ride, you're gonna go to a real paradise like the Rosario Islands, where you can find private villas, private restaurants. You can find, beaches that are a lot more quieter, emptier, to do a lot of different types of activities. This is an example of a private island you can rent. Mompox is a city that is beautiful. It's very historical and very important to the colonial history of Colombia, and because it's right by the Magdalena River. The Magdalena is the most important river in Colombia, and it was fundamental in the colonization of the country. So this city was very important as well. And we have an amazing jazz festival here in September. If you're into jazz, well, probably it's not happening this year, but next year, check it out. Definitely worthy of experiencing.
And a lot of people who are a fan of Gabriel Garcia Marquez definitely kind of like go to this city, because this was the inspiration behind his magical novel, The 100 Years of Solitude. So that's sort of like what's other important thing about this city.
You're totally right. I didn't mention Garcia Marquez, but you can find a lot of Garcia Marquez history in Cartagena, not just Mompox. In Cartagena, he lived in Cartagena. There's a tour that takes you through his favorite places in the city, which is really cool if you're into Spanish and Latin American literature. Santa Marta, so we'll go quickly through here. Santa Marta, basically the best spots are the Tayrona Park. So if you go to the next park, the Tayrona Park, is a beautiful natural park in Colombia. The only month of the year when it's closed is February, because the indigenous inhabitants of the park do a spiritual cleansing of it. So all throughout February, you won't find it open. But it's really worth it if you want to trek and you want sun and beach experiences that are a little bit more, adventurous. Ciudad Perdida. So the Lost City Trek, just like you say, Leila, it's an amazing jewel in Colombia. People don't know that we have, our own Machu Picchu, basically, right? And actually,
if I'm not mistaken, it's actually older than Machu Picchu. It's about 600, 700 years older.
Yeah, exactly. It's older than Machu Picchu. So you have amazing indigenous history right here. The trek itself is 4 days or 5 days long. So you have to be a trekker to do this tour. But if you prefer not trekking and you have a little bit more wallet to spend, you can also do helicopter tours that will actually land you near the Lost City, and you can see the Lost City itself. You can do a brunch around it, and then take your pictures, see the city, do the whole tour without doing the trek. So if you have a little bit more money to spend, you can do that as well. There's some community tourism around the Sierra Nevada area. So where the Lost City is, where the Tayrona Park is, this is a mountainous area that's independent from the Andes. It's not part of the Andes, it's independent. And it's a Sierra Nevada because on the top of it's snowy. So you can do even snow experiences there as well, like trekking all the way to the snow peak. But you can also do community tourism with the indigenous communities here. This is a tour that we took from YPO, and some of the communities are open to tourism. Everything is it has to be agreed with communities beforehand. So some of them are open to allowing tourists to check out some experiences. You can learn about how they cook, how they live, and even sometimes stay in the community. But not all communities will be open to this, and we have to be very respectful of how we approach the communities who live here. So scuba diving you can do in the Caribbean as well, and especially in the areas of San Andres and the Rosario Islands. We can move on. All right, so we won't see that video. It's actually a very funny video of Sofia Vergara talking to her son Manny in her character of Gloria in Modern Family, and she's saying, because he's asking, why are you always angry? I'm not angry, I'm Colombian. We have coffee all over Colombia, and that's why she's always basically altered. So we'll send you that video so you can have a laugh. But Colombia is really a coffee paradise in terms of where you having some of the best coffee, and also where you having coffee tours and experiences. So let's check some of that out in the coffee region. So the coffee cultural landscape, as we told you, which is the UNESCO declared site, covers 3 large or medium-sized cities. And we have experiences like the Cocora Valley. The Cocora Valley is where you're gonna find the tallest palm trees in the world, the wax palm trees. This is actually the Colombian national tree. And there's, for example, experiences where you can plant your own palm tree and name it, and your grandchildren in 50 years, because these trees take a long time to grow. So in 50 years, your grandchildren could visit Colombia, visit the same valley, and check out the tree that you planted. You can drive through the coffee landscape in a Jeep Willys. Jeep Willys is the kind of car that was used to grow and develop this region. There's small, Jeeps that used to carry you can find these souvenirs where you have the Jeep Willys and a bunch of different food on top of the Willys, which includes coffee, includes plantains, because this was the car that was used to transport crops around the towns in this region. Salento, so you're gonna find some amazing small towns, colonial towns here that are really worth checking out, like Salento or Finlandia, which is the one in the next picture. Really worth going to one of these or staying in one of these, because they're really cool, really colorful. You can get some amazing experiences with locals here. Locals here are really, really friendly. So let's talk about other regions of Colombia, right? So here we have a picture of the Chicamocha Canyon in the Santander region. Santander is a department about 6 hours by car from Bogota, or about half an hour flight, basically. And you're gonna find some of the best towns in this department, like Barichara. Barichara is actually named the most beautiful town in Colombia because of how well preserved it is, and it's just a bunch of red brick and red roofs, and it's just spectacular for a sight if you have a chance to go. And also, Santander is very known for the extreme and adventure travel experiences. Basically, here it's where you're going to get the best mountain biking, the canopy, the kayaking, the trekking, the rafting. If you want these type of experiences, Santander has developed an amazing industry around it, and it's visited by hundreds of visitors every year. Other places that are worth checking out, I told you the San Agustin Archaeological Park, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which you're going to find sculptures like this, and the largest, collection of these sculptures and tombs, and indigenous tombs, which is really cool. The energy here is really spiritual and really beautiful as well. And we have other regions, like the Pacific region.
So let's go quickly through the Pacific and
yeah. So basically, the Pacific is it's very different from the Caribbean. You're not going to get sun and beach experiences in the Pacific in Colombia. It's right, obviously, it's on the Pacific coast, and it's huge, the coast here, but the waters are deeper, and the beach here, the sands are darker, and so you get other types of experiences like whale watching through July and November. Colombia is actually where humpback whales spend the most time on their trek between the south of Chile all the way to Canada. So humpback whales visit Canada, they visit the US, they visit Mexico, they visit all these countries, but Colombia is where they stay the longest because it's where they reproduce, and they kind of have their babies, and they stay here for the longest while they train the smaller whales to basically to swim and to do everything. So it's really beautiful sometimes the sights you see here, and you're going to get some of these landscapes where you can appreciate virgin beaches, and it's really beautiful, but it's a different experience. It's more eco-touristic. It's more you're going to find sustainable type of tourism here, and eco-tourism here. And you do have cities near the Pacific. So Cali is 2 hours away from the Pacific. It is the capital of salsa. If you know anything about salsa, Cali is a huge hotspot for salsa. So if you like salsa, come to Cali. You're going to find amazing dance lessons. Some of those, for example, you can find lessons, personalized lessons for any type of rhythm, but basically salsa is the biggest here. And you're going to find some amazing world-class shows like the Delirio show. If you are in Cali, try to go one of the Delirio shows. They have one every week. It is the most spectacular show of salsa you're going to see in your life. And they're also actually doing virtual activities. So Leila, I'll send you a link so that the viewers can get a little bit of that through their screens as well. Popayan is a city near Cali, so we can go ahead and move to the next one. Yeah,
we can move forward with. I guess what I wanted to. Let's talk about this colorful rivers in this region, and then we gotta move to our coffee class.
Absolutely, yeah, we're already a little bit behind. So, Orinoquia, if you go back to the map 1 second. The Orinoquia is right on the left, and it's a shared region with Venezuela. So the Orinoquia region is a geographical region shared with Venezuela. You're going to find amazing plains. Basically, you don't get that many mountains here. You get a bunch of plains. So the best landscapes I've ever seen in Colombia are in this region because of the landscapes that you find. The best sunsets you can get are here. You have amazing nature. So if we move on to the next slide, and the next one, you're going to find places like this. And if you go to the next slide as well, this is the same river. It's called the Rainbow River, or the River of Seven Colors, because basically it is kind of like this magenta, pink, red, yellow river that is so unique because of the algae that grows on the bottom of the river. And it's a really natural place, and you have to trek a little bit to get here. but it's so worth checking out because there's nothing else like it in the world. And if we go to the next slide, we're going to find the cowboy culture in this part of the world. So you can find cowboy culture, you can find wildlife experiences, you can find glamping. If you go to the next slides, well, you can find some of those landscapes, for example, with wide rivers, and you can do fishing as well, horseback riding, and glamping. Glamping has become this new thing in Orinoquia, which is they set up these amazing luxurious camps in the middle of these plains with, you know, cowboys who are around you, who are, you know, doing cattle, and you can do horse riding, and you can do bird watching and a bunch of other activities. So really worth checking these experiences out. They're kind of a little bit more luxurious, but really, really cool if you have the budget to spend on it. And then we have the Amazon. We're not going to really talk a lot about the Amazon right now, but the Amazon.
We've covered Amazon in our Peru.
Awesome. So yeah, basically we share the Amazon with Ecuador, Peru, and Brazil, and Venezuela. So you can get very similar experiences of the Amazon in all those countries.
Excellent. All right. So follow Colombia Travel to get all these insider information from the Colombia tourism. That's a little bit of information about myself and my business. If you wanted to follow me on Instagram or Facebook, or drop me an email. But I wanted to read out, one of my favorite quotes by Anthony Bourdain before jumping into our coffee class. So travel isn't always pretty. It isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It even breaks your heart, but that's okay. The journey changes you. It should change you. It leaves marks on your memory, on your consciousness, on your heart, and on your body. You take something with you. Hopefully you leave something good behind. And I think part of that even relates to how travel transforms us, as it relates to what's happening these days and how we need to leave all of our judgment and all of our, racism behind and just like travel and being open-minded. So without any further ado, I wanted to introduce our coffee expert, Juan Pablo. I don't know if you could turn on your video, but he's joining us from, I actually don't know where about in Colombia, but he's joining us from Colombia. And he is a third generation of the family working in the plantation. So he's a coffee maker, grower, expert. And he's going to share his knowledge of coffee with us.
Hello, Leila. How are you? And hello to everybody. Nice to be with you. Today I'm in Bogota, Leila. Okay. Sadly, the day before the pandemic, we started the harvest at the plantation, and we couldn't arrive for the harvest, so it was just a phone with the manager.
You may want to stop your video because I think your voice is cutting off.
Okay, ready?
I think it's better. So yes, take us there.
Thank you. So as Leila was telling you, I'm a coffee grower. I came from a family that has been in the business since 1972. The name San Alberto is even in honor of one of my uncles. His name was Alberto. And we have the farm since 1972. And we're very proud because today we are Colombia's most award-winning coffee by quality and flavor. So you can, next slide.
So why Colombia's coffee is so special?
So Leila, we are in Colombia. We are the third country in volume in the world. The first one is Brazil. Second one will be Vietnam. And the third one will be Colombia. Why Colombia is so unique is because we have 4 facts. The first fact is that we are the only ones that are growing just Arabica. Arabica is a coffee species that is very fragile, very difficult to grow, but at the end, the final quality of the Arabica is more elegant, better flavors, and all the specialty coffees come from the Arabica family. Brazil and Vietnam, they grow Robusta, and Brazil, Robusta and Arabica. The second reason why Café de Colombia is unique is because of the social diversity and also the social importance of the business. We are 500,000 families growing coffee. That's a lot of Colombians involved. As we multiply those families times four, and it's going to give us around 2 million living directly in the fields working for coffee. Magical will be the size per family, different from Brazil. Brazilians are big guys, big families, big companies behind the business. In Colombia, we are small growers. Two hectares per family is the average. So many of them are going to live in the farm and they will work the field with their family and friends. So Alberto, in my case, we are considered a medium-sized farm and we are only 40 hectares. We compare this side with Brazil, for example. Some people told me that Brazilians, their average is 30 hectares.
And one of the things that I do sometimes for my clients who are going to Colombia is arranging accommodation stay at the coffee farm. So, you know, getting all the education and all the learning, as well as actually staying there to get the full experience.
That's also a very nice idea. Back in 1995, 96, the coffee price was so bad that many growers, they changed their business and they used their family house and they turned it into tourism. So there are some nice, very nice boutique farms, and you will be inside the middle of the plantation and you will be living as a grower, but with a lot of good facilities and accommodation. One more aspect, Leila, will be that we are 22 regions out of the 22 that we have in Colombia grow coffee. It means that we have coffee in the north, south, east, and west, and this is going to give us a very rich and diverse flavors idea. You can have coffee in Sierra Nevada, Santa Marta in the north. You can have coffee in the south near Ecuador. You can have coffee near Venezuela and also near the Pacific. That is where we are, as you see in the map. Quindío is the smallest region of Colombia after San Andres Island. So it's very nice to travel in the Quindío region because you can go from town to town, 30, 40 minutes by car, very good roads, and you will see the real coffee culture. That lately we have been in the UNESCO heritage, and the business is growing very fast as people is seeking experiences behind their trips. Not only good cities, good landscape, but they want to see some different richness. So a little bit of the history of San Alberto, as I already told you, this is a family farm. We are very inspired by the wine business, and we want to manage the plantation as a winery. This is a nice video of the farm. Buena Vista is the little town where we are, and Buena Vista will mean good view in English, and you will see why we say that Buena Vista is the best named town in Colombia. You will see the landscape. You can see all the Quindío Valley, and you can see part of Valley of Cauca, where Cali is the capital city.
So let me
I already told you this. I know that you are a little bit behind the time.
That's a gorgeous place.
So imagine visiting a winery. We want to replicate that same idea of winery, distilleries, but we want to visit the farm. So we opened already 12 years ago, we opened the plantation as we began to win international prizes by quality and flavor. Some very special niche of the market asked for us to open the origin. And today we are quite popular for the international visitors, those guys that are dreaming about learning about the coffee behind a real coffee expert. The altitude that is very, as you were saying at the beginning, Colombia is a crazy country in terms of weather. So you can go from very hot and wet weather and 1 hour of road and you will be with a good sweater and jacket. So the farm will be the lowest part will be 1,500 meters above sea level, and the highest part will be 1,800. So staying in this region is very, very healthy, and even the all people is going to retire in this region because the weather is nice. You are 30 minutes by plane from Bogota. So you want to be with the doctor, you will be in the morning and you can go back in the afternoon. Let's see some explanation of the plantation and the process.
So walk us through this, Juan Pablo.
So the idea is just to give you very brief idea of the coffee plantation. Just very important is that the coffee is a tree, and from the moment we plant the seed, left part of your screen, we use what we call a coffee nursery. We plant the seed of the coffee that is very similar to planting the bean in the high school exercise when you plant the bean with a cotton and some water. We try to replicate this same with sand and some of these boxes that we call the coffee nursery. 40 days after, we will have the little coffee baby alive, and then we move it. Lower part of your screen, left part, you will see small babies in some plastic bag in a greenhouse. In Colombia, we don't have irrigation system because of the topography and also the investment of having irrigation. So we try to feed these little babies very good because after the coffee nursery and after the greenhouse, we would not be able to help them very much. Then we move the little baby into the lot, and 9 months after, we will have the first blossom. The blossom is this middle upper part picture that is, you see that is white, very similar to the jasmine, and the flower is the beginning of the harvest. It means that once we have the flower will dry, it will fall down, and a small cherry will start growing and developing. And 9 months the cherry, lower part, middle of your screen. And the idea is to pick the red ripe cherry in order to have great quality. And that's also very important because the last difference between Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia is the hand picking. In Colombia, we don't have mechanical harvesting. We make all this by hand. So we assure better quality, better point of ripeness, and that's why Café Colombia is so well known in the world. You see some of the plantation in the right part of your screen, and then you see our beloved team that is the pickers. A plantation like San Alberto will have around 100 pickers during the harvest season, and for tourism, the weather of Colombia is very, very interesting because every day of the year, we will see some real action happening because of the weather. So let's see how we process the cherry. So remember the pickers, they pick the red cherry and they bring it to the facility. So they deliver it here. You can see the actual view. We are very close to the town, just 300 meters from the town Buena Vista. We measure the amount of kilos, and Friday afternoon, we will pay them cash according to the kilos they have picked during the week. We sort the cherry, and then we process the cherry. How we process? We depulp it, that is just peeling the red skin of the cherry, and inside the cherry, you will see the 2 almonds that you are seeing in the to the farm. They are
is this green thing? Is this green thing? What's the inside of that cherry?
Yes, so the cherry will have 2 of these yellow almonds. There are going to be 2 of those inside the cherry. So once we process the cherry, we have the 2 almonds open, and we have to wash it, and then we dry the almond. And that's known in the world of coffee as gold coffee or parchment coffee. In this stage, the coffee is not smelling as coffee, and it's not tasting as coffee. It's very hard, and it will not taste or smell as anything. We process the gold coffee, and inside the gold coffee, we have what we call the green coffee. And normally in Colombia, we export the coffee in green position, that is the almond ready to be roasted, or we roast it and we export.
So this is how the coffee looks like before it gets roasted.
We have to peel the gold skin that you see in the picture. Okay. We peel it by friction, and then we will have the green bean. Some timing, Leila, that is very fun for the coffee fan is that once you plant the seed, you will have to wait 3 years for the first harvest. Then you have the flower, and you will have to take care of this cherry for 9 months. So before any Colombian coffee arrives to Canada land, at least it has passed 1 year. 9 months of the ripeness of the cherry, and then we have to process, dry, and then ship the coffee by plane or by sea.
Excellent. Okay. I don't know if I can play this.
Going to summarize all the process from the seed to the final stage of the process. That's the flower. That's the cherry. We sort it by water. And then we depulp it by friction. We wash it again. And then we dry the coffee. Those bags are the normal bags that we use for exportation. That's the gold coffee.
Excellent. So
when you visit Colombia, you will be very surprised because in Colombia, we grow the best coffee in the world, but since exporting coffee was better for the economy, we learned to drink cheap quality coffee. So our coffee entity has been making a very good work of marketing for the Café de Colombia. That means that Colombians doesn't drink too much coffee, and the coffee that we normally drink is the coffee that is forbidden to be exported. That is the low, very low quality. Mm-hmm. We are very lucky mainly because of you, the tourism. When they start arriving to Colombia, one of their normal complaints was, come on, we flew thousands of miles expecting the best coffee of our lives, and it didn't happen. So now, past 5 years, many growers and some independent roasters, we are saving some of our best beans in order to keep it for Colombians and mainly for international visitors. So now you can drink very, very exquisite coffee during your visit in Colombia.
Yes.
So we have a very strong, Leila, we have a very strong tourism operation. As I was explaining, as we start winning the prizes, the tourism start clicking. So we are making private walking tours to the plantation, in the farm, and of course we have, as Santiago was saying, Cartagena is one of our main cities for tourism. So we have one location in Cartagena we call the Coffee Temples, and we make what we call the coffee baptism. It's like a coffee tasting, a little bit more fun, full of knowledge, given by one of our coffee experts. So we make the coffee baptisms. Some of the smoke that you are seeing is that we are making what we call the coffee molecular tasting, that is playing with the textures in order to create a very special experience for the high-end tourism that was lately arriving to the country. So we make at the farm the walking tours, and in Bogota and Cartagena, we make the coffee baptism. We have 3 locations in Bogota and 1 location in Cartagena.
Excellent.
A little bit of the setup of the places. Let's go to the next one. And let's go to the most fun part of the presentation, that is giving you some tips and advices of how to brew a great cup of coffee. So you are seeing some devices that some of those devices looks like chemistry. This is not chemistry, this is coffee. But if you saw some of those devices, there are different brewing techniques. You can brew coffee using gravity. You can brew coffee using pressure, vacuum, or immersion. Normally, Canadians and Colombia, we love the same type of coffee that normally will be filter coffee. So filter coffee will be using the gravity as a force, and the coffee that we will have at the end will be a very mild coffee, big cup, and very elegant flavors. Italians, French, they love the pressure. They use espresso, and they like their coffee with a lot of body, very bold flavors, and very small amount of beverage. Normally in Colombia, we call it the tinto. Tinto will be just a coffee, and normally we want to talk different from the Italians that they drink it and they move. We like to drink coffee with our friends in a meeting, and it's a synonymous of a friendship relation. My advice will be 7 to 9 grams per 100 milliliters. We have water. 98% of a cup of coffee is water, so be careful with the water that you are using. The water temperature, none of these methods is using boiling water. We have to use it just below the boiling point. The city where we are, Bogota, is very high. We are 2,700 above sea level meters, and the water will boil at 92 Celsius degrees. When we go to Cartagena, the boiling point will be 100 sea level. So pay attention with the boiling point. We don't use boiling water to brew coffee because the water will burn the coffee and the flavor will be damaged. We don't save the coffee, we brew the coffee and we drink it. And the last one is like a good whiskey, we don't use Red Bull or Coke, just good coffee, good friends around, and we enjoy it.
Excellent.
I have, Leila, some of the brewing devices with me. So if you want, we can brew some coffee live to you and all the friends that are we're visiting Colombia during this virtual presentation. We have the vacuum siphon on your left part of the screen, and the Chemex, that is a brewing device using gravity.
Absolutely, for sure. So let's just go through the slides, and then whoever wants to stay, they can stay longer to brew a coffee, live. Because one of the things I wanted to point out was, the fact that how one of the things that I do for those of you who are joining us online is I'd love to support and collaborate with local businesses. And I guess that's the time that we've all pivoted and we all changed our businesses. So what Juan Pablo has done, he and his team, they created what they call it a knowledge box. So they created all of these material that you need for brewing coffee for 2 people. And again, I'll share this, I'll share all the links, but you can actually order things from Juan Pablo from Colombia and get fresh coffee. And correct me, how long does the shipping takes? I think 5 days, or I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe with the pandemic, it will last maximum 1 week. We will ship it from Bogota using DHL, and it will arrive in a nice box directly to your home. And as Leila was saying, the box is trying to replicate what we normally do with the tourism in Colombia, that is showing you how to grow the coffee, some of the raw material, and we play with your senses. So we have some exercises with some of fruits of Colombia that we are sending in order to highlight, to awake your mouth sense, and also some aromas that we are sending. And at the end, we will taste 3 different coffees, and you will realize good coffee against bad coffee and the difference between medium roast and medium high roast. At the end, you will become a Colombian coffee ambassador. We will
Fantastic.
even send you a certificate.
Yeah. So again, the information for Juan Pablo's business. Let me go back to the slide again, which we had all the the Facebook, Instagram, website information, and then we are going to brew coffee live. So go to Cafe San Alberto on Instagram or on Facebook, or cafesanalberto.com to actually order coffee from Colombia. That would be fresh coffee, and we've just watched how the whole process of coffee, the picking and all of that works. So again, thank you so much, Juan Pablo. I really appreciated you joining us from Colombia and walking us, actually doing a virtual tour of coffee plantation tour of your farm and how you guys brew coffee. I certainly enjoyed, and a lot of people are messaging in the chat, and they are thanking, and they loved it. Also, Santiago, thank you so much for, again, your help and support. I hope that soon we can visit Colombia. As I mentioned, it's a great destination, and I'm sure that we didn't have enough time to cover all the beauty and nature aspect of Colombia, but I hope that we've just done a little bit of poking that Colombia is a great destination, so you put it in your bucket list. And I'll follow up with some of the links that we talked about and information about Juan Pablo's. I guess if you wanted to stay along, we'll be joining Juan Pablo in Colombia and brewing coffee. But if you are, I know that we've actually, it's almost like 8 o'clock. So, but I know if you wanted to drop off and have dinner here, it's again, thank you so much. Next week, by the way, as part of my virtual travel series, we'll be traveling to Ireland. So stay along. And after that, we've got other destinations. I'm also working on curating some local travel for Canada and Ontario specifically. The challenge has been that, especially for Ontarians, we've been in the state of emergency for quite some time. So it's been challenging a little bit to put it all together. But again, and I guess meanwhile, we'll be going through some of the questions that you've asked us, and would follow up with all of those. But if not, Juan Pablo, back to you. Let's brew some coffee. And I've just brewed some coffee for myself, but I'm sure it's not quite it doesn't come close to the quality that you have there. But
also, of course, thank you, Leila, for the invitation, and Santiago. Very happy to share with you not only the country, but also our beloved coffee. So let's go into action. The idea is that I'm going to brew what we call drip coffee, and the late trend will known as slow coffee, because we're going to brew it by hand. So this is what we call the B60, that is just a drip cone. We have a paper filter over here, and we have just a regular kettle or server. We have a scale. I was reading some of the chat, so yes, we are coffee junkie, super coffee fan. So we have a scale, because we'll have to weigh the amount of coffee and the amount of water. We have, of course, good coffee, the coffee of my family, and some advices in addition will be, if you are a real coffee fan, please try to buy the coffee whole ground. The reason, when you buy whole bean, you will see the size of the almond, and you will see how nice is the bean. Low quality brands are going to sell it already ground, and they can mix different qualities, and the normal consumer will never realize how good or bad was the physical quality. So I have already ground the coffee. As I was saying, my advice will be 24 grams of coffee, and I will brew 300 milliliters of water. I have a nice kettle that is what we call a gooseneck, that is going to give us control for the brewing. But if you have a electrical machine like a Cuisinart, KitchenAid, whatever, those drip coffee machines is going to be exactly the same. And I will start pouring the water. Remember, just below boiling point.
So what's the temperature of the water?
In this stage will be 88.
Okay.
And when you buy a coffee, try to search for information on the back. In Colombia, where 500,000 families who grow coffee, you have to search a little bit deeper. How many, from what region? 22 regions in Colombia grow coffee. So saying just Café de Colombia is a good clue, but it's not enough information. It's like saying French wine. It's a good information, but you have to dig a little bit deeper. So try to search for information is from where, from who, and what type of coffee, Arabica or Robusta. We already know that in Colombia, we only have Arabica, but under the Arabica family, you will start seeing on some nice cafes, even in Toronto or in Montreal, you will see that are saying Arabica Geisha, Arabica Caturra, Arabica. Those are varieties of the Arabica family, and the business is turning very professional. So some consumers are going to say, I love Café de Colombia, but I want this variety of the Arabica family. So very close to the wine. It's like a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Merlot or a Cabernet Franc. Some consumers are asking not only the origin, not only the farmer, but also the specific variety that he wants to drink. So I'm ready with the water, and the brewing time is also important in order to have a good extract.
Any fancy, you're not using anything fancy, like you're just using sort of like a filter and just
Yes, Leila, in Colombia, when you visit us, you will see that in the fields, we don't have anything of this. In the fields, what we use is a pan full of boiling water. We boil the water, we turn off the flame, and then we add the coffee. Mm-hmm. We stir the coffee with a spoon, and we will leave it for 4 or 5 minutes. Now, the evolution of that method is what we call the coffee press or French press. So this is a different brewing device. Same coffee, different brewing device is going to highlight different flavors of the same coffee. So coffee is ready. When you drink a specialty coffee, you will see that the color of the final product is not as darker as the commercial one. The reason, a specialty coffee, we try to roast the coffee lighter. When we roast the coffee lighter, we are highlighting some aromatical compounds plus some of the elegance in terms of fruitness, aromatical compounds, also the sweetness, and a very light and elegant body. So this is full of coffee, but the color is going to confuse your mind. In Colombia, when we brew this type of coffee for regular Colombians, they will start arguing, saying, come on, Juan Pablo, add some grams of coffee. And this is not because of the grams, this is because of the type of roast that we have. So I have a nice cup over here. Some people believe that specialty coffee tastes more like a tea than a regular coffee. I agree with that one. Specialty coffee is full of different flavors. For some traditional consumers, they will not like the specialty coffee. They will go to the old school type of coffee.
So we may find it light coffee compared to what we typically drink.
Yes, that would be the normal complaint of the traditional consumers. Mm-hmm. But the trend is growing, and big cities like Montreal, like Toronto, you are one of those pioneers that are opening the door for specialty coffee. And remember, in Colombia, we grow a lot of good coffee, but we are not very good consumers. So we are learning about this, and we are following the trend of you in terms of brewing devices, in terms of quality, in terms of what information is important for the consumer. And that's how the specialty industry is growing very fast. And lately, during the pandemic, people seems to be drinking more coffee than usual.
Yes, that definitely has been the trend.
Amazing.
Salud, a toast for you, and please visit Colombia very soon once this nightmare finish.
Thank you, Juan Pablo.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much. I keep my
you.
fingers crossed. Hopefully, as of September 1st, you open up. But again, thank you everyone for joining. What we will do, again, we'll share all the follow-ups information, but make sure that you're following myself, Travel Design by Leila, on Instagram, Facebook, as well as Juan Pablo's coffee business. And you could go online to, what was the website again? cafesanalberto.com. Santiago, it would be great if you could share that link with everyone else so that they could, they get those like specialty boxes. I'm so looking forward to get one of those boxes and brew it like exactly how you did it. And I'll let you know how I liked it. Because I'm quite a coffee drinker, but we'll see how I like your coffee. Excellent. So everyone, thank you so much again. I had an amazing time. I hope you did and you learned something. And now you put Colombia on your radar in terms of your upcoming travels, and stay tuned for the rest of Virtual Travel Series. Again, Juan Pablo, thank you so much. Again, for sharing your knowledge. Santiago, thank you so much. Sending lots of love to all people in Colombia. And again, fingers crossed that we can actually physically travel soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.